Well, welcome in, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to a PHLY special. And you might recognize this man when it comes to basketball. Everybody knows this face. The great Tim Legler. I'm Anthony Gargano. And we are live here at the beautiful Parks Casino in Ben Salem. Of course, home of the Bet Parks app. And we're here to do State of Hoop podcast. We're very excited with the tournament launching tomorrow. Obviously, the playing game tonight, the two games tonight, and then the tournament in full swing tomorrow. We thought it would be a great time to put on a State of Round Ball.
Let's do it.
You know,
it's the best time of the year.
It's great to see you,
man. Hey, so good to be on with you, man.
I'm free.
There you go. Released.
I'm out of jail.
That's it, baby.
And I get, it's funny.
Parole.
One of the things I wanted to do when I get out of jail, and I actually could do this, was I miss our conversations.
Yeah.
There was nothing like, and it's funny, one of the reasons why, I'm going to give you completely inside baseball here. One of the reasons why I really wanted to do this whole project, this digital project with PHLY in ALLCITY, was that I used to get frustrated during our conversations because I had to end them.
Right, sure.
Right,
well, that's always been, that's always a big problem. Even for my other day job, right? You've got a certain amount of time for those segments. There's only so much you're going to get in there. There's a different format. So you can dive into a subject. That's why I've always loved streaming or radio, because you can take as much time as you want to delve into a topic. So I hear you.
And we used to have these great long conversations about the NBA, the Sixers, and basketball and the whole thing. And so this is like a dream to be able to sit down here at the incredible Parks Casino and actually just talk ball.
Yeah.
And just kind of dive into some great hoop talk. And it's a perfect time with the tournament starting tomorrow. And don't forget, we are brought to you by the Bet Parks app. I want to tell you that with the tournament going on, this is time to do it. The last two playing games tonight, 6:40, Montana State, 3.5 against Grambling State. And at 9:10, Colorado, a 2.5-point favorite against Boise. Download the Bet Park Sportsbook app and make your futures bets. Right now, you think win it all. Well, I'm going to pick Legs' brain. You can live bet all the tournament action as you watch the games. All right, you got the latest odds going on, the top 5 favorites to win it all. UConn right now is obviously the favorite. Houston, 25 brings it back 143. 25 on Purdue, 162.50. 25 on Arizona brings you back 350, and 25 on Carolina will bring you back 400. The only sports betting app I ever recommended, the Bet Parks app. Download it right now. New users, you get you can make a winning $10 bet. You get 125 in sportsbook bonus back now. Got to be 21. You got to be in PA, New Jersey, Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so first of all, let's talk tourney. All right, because we're going to get into NBA. We'll get into the women's tournament. We'll get into the state of all basketball. But the tournament's here.
Yeah, best time of the year.
So take me back, right? Like, you played in this tournament.
Yes.
And you had an incredible team. You and L Train,
Dougie Overton.
Oh my God! Yeah. I mean, it was immense. What was that run like? When you think back to this time, does your mind always wander back to that moment?
Every single year, and whenever they show the great celebrations, right, that teams have, and that's the best part of Selection Sunday. Watching the cameras on those teams when they're all jumping up and you finally see their name
I love it.
on the screen. So to set up us going to the tournament my senior year really started the year before when we went to the NIT championship game.
Yeah.
So we were disappointed we didn't get a bid that year. We took the NIT bid. And it's interesting now, teams turning down NIT bids. Don't even get me started on that. I know. But we didn't, obviously. We wanted the postseason exposure. So we win 5 games, and we're in Madison Square Garden. We're in this championship game. We lose to Southern Mississippi 84-80. But it gave us like a taste of what postseason felt like, because by that time, the whole school was into it. They're busing a ton of people up to New York to watch those games. And it was a great run, adrenaline. The next year, we go undefeated in the league, 17-0 in the MAC. And clearly, we're going to get a bid because we win the conference. By the way, I've never been as nervous in my life playing a basketball game as I was the championship game against Fordham, because we're 16-0.
Oh, yes.
And if we don't win that game,
you're not getting in that large.
That conference isn't getting in that large bid.
No.
So despite the perfect year, you've already beaten them twice.
Right.
And
it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
And they were those tough New York kids, Fordham kids. Like, we always had wars with them. And we were down early in the game, the whole bit, man. But we came back, we win the game. So we know we're in. So now you fast forward to that Sunday, and we're all gathered, and we're just waiting to see. And because our league wasn't very good, we get a 13 seed, which we were better than that. We had 3 NBA players on the team who are better than a 13 seed.
Of course.
We played Kansas State, first round. Mitch Richmond. They at South Bend, Indiana. We got to Notre Dame, and we gave them a hell of a game. We didn't get it done. And
I remember watching that game too.
They went to the Elite Eight that year and lost to Danny Manning's team that won the national championship. So we ended up running into a great team. But every single year on Selection Sunday, I'm absolutely taken back to that moment, sitting with my teammates in our sweats, waiting for that name to pop up and find out where you're going and who you're playing against.
It's the best, too, because Greg Gumbel would be like, all right, now let's go. The 14 seed, LaSalle Explorers. 20th,
we go to 20th and Alney right now, right? And then we're all sitting in the room. And then, the next thing that happens, as soon as you see your name and you're paired up with somebody, the next thing that happens is, well, who's on Kansas State? You have no idea. You haven't played Kansas State. It's not like now with the coverage that you have at your fingertips that you can see, everything right about it. We didn't know, who's on Kansas State.
Exactly.
And you're learning as much as you can. You got 3 days to get ready to go out and play that game. It's a pretty wild experience. But I am so grateful that I got to taste that and experience that at least once in my playing career, to go to the NCAA tournament, because you dream about that when you're a little kid out shooting hoops.
Listen, nobody, had a career like you where here you are, you busted it. People don't realize that you were a great baseball player.
Baseball was definitely my more natural sport. It was my best sport. And I should have played both at LaSalle, but I had a foot injury at the end of basketball season my freshman year. And for the first time in my life, that summer and spring, I did not play baseball for the first time since I was a little kid. And I just had the bug for hoops. And I'm like, let's see, I got to pick one. I'm going to pick hoops and try to take it as far as I can.
That was the way harder route to go go basketball.
No doubt about it. And I was also more naturally gifted at baseball than I was basketball in the first place. And it just, what you had to overcome. To do it in basketball, it was going to be a different journey. And it took me all over the world before I got to the league. And then 23 years now at ESPN.
Europe. I mean, you've been all over. But the one constant is you love that ball.
Yeah,
you love that, right? You love it.
It's an obsession.
It is.
It's an obsession, and I'm constantly in search of it being played beautifully, right? Because that's what I want to watch.
I love your eye. You always have that. When you're looking, you almost see it. We talk about basketball being the art of movement, and that's kind of how your vision is. That's why I love, by the way, Legs does an amazing podcast on the AllCITY Network with Adam Mares, which is really great inside NBA stuff. So besides his ESPN stuff, you got to catch him on that podcast. Is amazing because you're constantly almost in search of.
Yeah, I am, because that's what I believe in. That's how I believe the game's supposed to be played, like a certain style. And I've always said, coaching basketball is, I think, more difficult than anything, because you're trying to basically pair up two things, which is the individualistic component, which is when you catch it, what are you going to do with it? Or you got to make decisions. And then get 5 guys being individuals and somehow making that look like 5 guys playing together. It's a very difficult thing to accomplish and to pull off. And when you find it, man, sign me up. I'll watch it all night long.
It's so beautiful, man. When you find that and the ball doesn't hit the floor, when you see that movement and the ball moving quickly.
The trust factor when it's at a high level of when the right play is made for the next guy, like the concept of when it's my turn, I expect it, and when it's your turn, you could expect it from me. Like, that's the right play to make. It's going to get made every time. When you get guys to buy into that, man, can you create something great? And that's hard in college basketball now. Because the roster turnover is so immense. So you have in a lot of cases, half your roster are guys that like you just got, and they're there for a year, and then there are going to be 5 of those guys are going to leave at the end of the year. It's really harder than ever to find that in college basketball, like what we're talking about, the description of 5 guys finding that rhythm together.
Well, it's one of the reasons why that I think the tournament, at least the college basketball regular season, I mean, the tournament's still special, and everybody loves it, and we're geeked up, and we can't wait to watch it. But the college basketball regular season's taking a little bit of a hit.
Yeah.
And I do think it's because of guys like movement. Like,
yeah, no doubt.
There's too much movement within the sport, whether it's transfers, one and dones. Whereas if you go back in the annals of college basketball, from when you played really into the early 2000s, those teams stayed together.
Right, they did, and not only that, like, and we don't want to sound like, old guy, get off my lawn. But the truth is, not only that, you could also name, if you had a college basketball program that you loved, and growing up, because my first 12 years of my life, I was in Baltimore, Maryland, I was a huge Terps fan.
Yeah.
There was 8 teams in the ACC, and they were the same 8 teams, like from the time I was born all the way through. So not only did you know the guys on your team that you followed, and they were probably going to be there for 4 years, because a transfer, if a guy even transferred, it was like, we got a couple in at LaSalle, and like, hey, we got a transfer in. We had one coming from DePaul. Wow. And we're all like, we got a transfer?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to him? Like,
How nuts is that?
Like that word. You were like, wow, what went wrong there?
Yeah.
So, but you also knew not only the guys on the team you followed, you knew all the players on the other teams in the conference.
Oh, my God.
Now, I defy people, like, just name a conference. Tell me the teams that are in the conference.
Right.
First of all, it's not like 8 or 10. It's like some of these conferences have like 16 teams, 18 teams. And the turnover of players makes it so much. Now, you still get your rabid fan bases that are alumni or fans of certain programs, particularly like the blue blood type programs, right? And they're going to know their guys every year, even though there is turnover. But they're not going to know the other teams necessarily in the conference as much, because you just can't follow that many names.
When you're an ACC guy, like you're, Carolina, Duke, obviously, NC State. Like, I can still rattle off the starting 5 from from the Wolfpack.
From 83? Well,
Cozell, McQueen.
University of Virginia was, Ralph Sampson's 3-time player of the year. That was 45 minutes from. By that time, I'd been going to Richmond. So we were in Richmond for those years.
Yeah.
But like that, those were Wake Forest, and like those were the Clemson.
Tim Duncan. Like,
and it was like Saturday afternoon, man. You were dialed in because like there's only 4 games in the conference. There's 4 matchups.
Yeah.
So you can almost watch all of them,
Yeah.
It's a different world. And as a result, the tournament is going to provide more, I think, uncertainty and vulnerability than we've ever seen.
Well, that's it. I mean, and that's kind of why I preface all this by talking about the tournament. It's going to be wide open. We talk about UConn and we talk about Houston, right? I mean, those are the 2 favorites in this whole thing. But, I mean, throughout these top seeds, I mean, it really is upset. There's no such thing anymore as like Cinderella, because Cinderella is pretty prevalent.
Go through all of the matchups, and you're going to find more teams that are like 8 seeds and above with double-digit losses than you've ever seen. Yeah. And the reason is because these coaches are also in the same boat. They're trying to find continuity with a whole new group of guys, like every single year. Very little stability there. So you're going to see, I think there's going to be more upsets of lower-seeded teams being higher-seeded teams this year than ever. I think that's what's about to happen over the next
it's going to be
4
interesting.
days.
Yeah, and you look at teams like Purdue, right? That's a one-man kind of show.
Right. Very unique because nobody's playing like that.
You got
Tennessee's
Larry Bird,
like that.
Jr.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. They're the same way. Houston is a team that I really like because I think they have, first of all, 4 of their top 5 scorers are seniors.
Yeah.
They've been there a while, right? They've been either in that program or just in general exposed to college basketball. 13 of their last 16 wins, they've held teams in the 60s. Like, that's not modern basketball to do that, because with the three-point line, the prevalence of the shot, the pace of the game, how wide open everything is, that's very difficult to do. Like, to do that a handful of times in the course of a season, that's hard to do. To do that pretty consistently the entire second half of the year. So that's why I look at a team like Houston and say they don't necessarily have to make shots to win. And in a tournament, it might be tough because there's pressure. Teams develop a game plan against you over the last 72 hours. They can take things away. Well, okay, then let's go win a game 62-58 if that's what it takes. And I think Houston can do that.
They remind me, remember Miami how Miami was like in the like mid 2000s.
Yep.
You know that they were gritty. They were a team that could play good defense. They would hit a three. They had that senior Larenga. Like they would always kind of have that kind of guy that could settle things down for you.
Houston's like that, and Shedd's their big time guard. And like, look, UConn is a team that I think if you polled everybody that does this for a living, right? What percentage of people are saying UConn?
Yep.
Probably 75% or more of quote experts or that do this every day and try to pick this stuff are picking UConn. I know, like at ESPN where I'm at, all of the college basketball analysts, like that's where they're falling in line. They won it last year. They just look like they're on a mission.
I watched that Big East tournament, and
they've got an edge to them.
You know, and it was funny because one of the games I enjoyed a lot was the St. John's game because it's Pitino,
right?
So it was kind of like a throwback a little bit. They fought hard, like they played. St. John's played them hard.
Yeah, Danny Hurley is just not the type of guy to let 1 second of complacency sink into his team.
No.
You know, and look, he's been in the news a lot over the last few weeks. Like he's getting into it with fan bases a lot, leaving the court. We've been watching that, but it speaks to kind of like his demeanor. Like he's like, you know, street tough. Like I'll fight you right now, and his team takes on that identity. It's us against the world, and that you can really accomplish some things when you get guys inside 4 walls to believe that. And he's really good at doing that with his group.
That name, man. That Hurley name, man.
That's it.
I mean, that's Jersey City tough. Like that's basketball.
And it was great last year. He's going on the run, and you know, they're of course they got his dad, Bobby Sr. and Bob Jr.'s brother sitting there going on this ride with them as they won the national championship. It's a pretty cool story for a basketball family, like lifers.
Well, but let me ask you, because, you know, getting through this tournament you got to be able to, first of all, you need experience, and they have experience winning it last year, like you said, and just this year with the Big East tournament, going through those steps, because how taxing is it playing those 2 games, you know, a Thursday, Saturday, a Friday, Sunday.
No, very.
You know, because I remember John Chaney, they always had the advantage going into the second game because no one could see the zone, and it was impossible to prepare for that matchup zone in just a few hours.
Completely agree with it. Now I loved seeing that zone as a shooter. I didn't mind the Temple zone as much. And my buddy Mike Vrieswick, he might be watching this. We talk about that all the time. No, you're right about that. I think
the rhythm.
Here's something else that people need to think about when you start thinking, like, how do some of these upsets take place from these, like, you know, lower mid-majors and below conferences that beat some of these Power 5 schools? You think about, we talked about a second ago, what we went through at LaSalle, and it's still the case today. A lot of these conferences are getting one bid. No matter what your regular season record was in that conference, you've got to finish the deal. So my point is, by the time they get through their own conference tournaments, some of these mid-majors and below,
they're battle tested.
The pressure shots they've had to make because every one of those games was win in advance for them. Some of these Power 5 schools pretty much know they're going to have a spot locked up, even if they lose in the first or second round of their conference tournament. There's a ton of teams in the tournament like that, so they haven't faced that yet. The pressure of missing a big shot and going home. Some of these mid-major schools, they just went through that for a week. And it does matter.
That's
because
a great point.
As long as you cannot get hit with the big blow early, because that's what they're going to try to do to you. They're going to be bigger. They're going to be more athletic, right? They're going to pressure the ball. If you can avoid getting hit with that buzzsaw early in the game, the pressure, you can just watch it shift to the higher seeded team in the second half of the game. If a team is within striking distance or it's a tie game with 8 minutes to go, it's amazing how tight some of these Power 5 schools get, because you think of the ramifications of losing to teams that their alumni and their fan base have never heard of before. And that's what they're dealing with in the moment. And it's kind of fascinating.
That's what makes
that's what makes it.
That's what makes it. Because when there's 8 minutes to go, right, and that, you know, small school is tied, right? Clinging to it. All of a sudden, you see the possessions, the tightness. Like,
You also see this shift in the paradigm of who people in this building are rooting for all of a sudden. Now, all of a sudden, you feel like you're playing a road game, right? When it's supposed to be neutral site court, and you're playing a road game because everybody's getting caught up in this 14 seed that's about to knock off a 3. And so now you're dealing with that too. So like, the key is just if you have enough talent and you don't turn the ball over, and you're well coached, and just hang in there and don't get hit early, because now you're going to start doubting yourself, and you're going to feel like you don't belong necessarily on the court with this team.
That's right.
Avoid that. Get them into a one-possession game inside 10 minutes and watch how much tighter they will get. That's my advice for like any lower seeded team. And that's what we were trying to do to Kansas State. When I was at LaSalle, they got us by, I think they beat us by 10 or 11, something like that. But it was within striking distance second half. We just couldn't get it done.
You just see that, like that shot start to go short.
Guys all of a sudden short arm those free throws, right? And it's like because they feel the magnitude of losing the game. And they're for the first time, they start thinking about losing the game. They don't think about that going in. They think there's no way they can lose, these higher-seeded teams. All of a sudden, you make them start doubting that with 8 minutes to go. It's amazing.
It's the best, and that's why we can't get enough of this thing. That's why it's an American classic. All right, we're going to go through each of the regions on the bracket for you. But first, I got to tell you about Bet Parks, okay? Don't forget, the last 2 playing games tonight, Montana State, 3.5-point favorite against Grambling State. Colorado, 2.5 against Boise State. Download the Bet Parks Sportsbook app. Make your futures bet. Right now, like, who you think's going to win it all? We told you the favorites, right? You got UConn, all right, like 25 bucks. They're 4-1. Brings back 100. All right, Houston brings back on $25, 143.75. Then you got Purdue, you got Arizona, down to Carolina. A $25 bet on Carolina will bring back $400. The only sports betting app I'll ever recommend is this one, the Bet Parks Sportsbook app. You can go live betting, and so you're watching the game, you can see the stuff that Lex talks about. You put a few bucks on it because you can see the rhythm of the game going on. And right now, make a winning $10 sports bet. You can get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. BetParks.com has all the details. The BetParks app is safe. It's easy, simple to use. You got to be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. BetParks. All right, so let's start off. We got our brackets. I love the brackets. All right, so let's start off in the East, okay? Where UConn, of course, the #1 overall seed. They're going to play the winner of Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. The other part of that bracket is San Diego State, the 5 seed, and Auburn, the 4 seed. So let's look at that grouping right now. And do you see any of those teams that you like in that spot?
I don't know that. Are you asking me about upsets?
Potential.
I mean, obviously UConn's going to take care of Stetson, and a lot of people like Yale. Like they think that that's a kind of a team that could be hard to play against, but I just don't see them being able to deal with the athletes Auburn has. I don't know that I see any upsets there unless you consider 9-8, because I think Northwestern is a good shot to beat Florida Atlantic. And I think Florida Atlantic has one of the best coaches in the country, Dusty May.
And they were hot.
Yeah.
And then they got the Chris Temple.
I know they did. And look, if you go and look at the way some of these conference tournaments played out and try to make a determination, like if that's going to change your mind, I think that's a mistake. If you look at a game in some of these conference tournaments, because that happened all over the country. Weird results happened in the first, second rounds, even some of the championship games in these conference tournaments. You got to look at the totality of the season.
Get smashed.
I know that.
Right?
They got blown out by 28. Right, and this is it. I give them all the credit in the world, Houston, by the way, because they changed conferences. They go from the American Conference, where they were dominant, and they were #1 in the country at some point last year. They leave first year of the Big 12, and you go win the Big 12.
I know.
Regular season. I mean, that's incredible.
And that's a gauntlet, right? We talk about Iowa State's a 2 seed. You got them Baylor and Texas, and it's one after another that you got to play every week.
But Northwestern, Florida Atlantic is I think that's a pick'em game. I like Northwestern. But Florida Atlantic has got such a great coach, and he's probably going to be out, by the way. when this tournament runs over.
Yeah,
His name's being. He was last year too.
Yeah.
And he turned down a couple of looks, and I think you can only do that so many times. I think this year Dusty May throws his name into the ring, and he ends up somewhere else. Maybe Michigan, maybe Louisville.
So if you forecast down the line, you don't see Auburn, because I can't see that matchup. If I look at Auburn, Connecticut, I still see Connecticut beating Auburn. I don't think they're a fun team to watch. But UConn, I think, is just too buttoned up.
I don't think it gets really dicey for UConn necessarily until you would get down to Iowa State.
Yeah.
Potentially, assuming Iowa State's still alive. That 10-7 Drake-Washington State's a first-round game in the East. That
I like
a
Drake
lot of people like Drake. Yeah, a lot of people like Drake in that game.
I do too. Yeah, I like them. Illinois, I'm not sure about with them. Now they got an easy run because. You get Moorhead, and you'll have Drake, and I think you'll move forward. Or actually, you'll have BYU, and I think they'll beat BYU. So I think I could see them getting out of the weekend. But I'm not in love with Illinois.
No, I'm not in love with Illinois either. I think in general, I think that the Big Ten was kind of jumbled this year.
Yeah.
Right? It was kind of a strange season for the Big Ten to predict how that was going to go, with the exception of Purdue, who just looks different than everybody else because they got that behemoth.
Yeah.
It was Zach Edey.
Yeah.
But look, they've got a tough tournament track record. So people are wondering, like, is it going to happen to them again? Because you talk about a team.
That's the first thing you're saying is that Purdue's going to be out early.
You start, talking about teams that could experience what I just described. When you've already had failures in the past in the tournament, it'll seep in quicker to a team like that than other teams because of their track record. And Purdue, some people think, could be vulnerable because of that.
All right, let's look at it. So let's just real quick look at the bottom half of that East and Iowa State. Iowa State can muck it up. What I like Iowa State is that they're rugged, they play good defense, and they'll muck it up.
They will defend all day long. And I think, look, they got to be coming in a high right now. Like, they got to feel pretty good about the way things ended for them, right? Yeah. When you play that well and you play almost perfect basketball in that last game coming into the tournament, and that's why I think, watch out for NC State potentially to get an upset. Because when you go through that for 3 or 4 days, and that's how you culminate your regular season, it can carry into the NCAAs for a team like that.
All right, so if we say the East, and we'll come back to it, but we kind of look at a collision course, UConn, Iowa State.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, let's go to the bottom half, and let's go out to the West region. Okay, the West region. Carolina, the 1 seed up top. And this is interesting because this Carolina team, I'm curious to see what you think of. A lot of people think they're the 5th highest, they have the 5th best odds to win the whole thing. What's your opinion of this version of the Carolina?
Yeah, look, they got a lot of talent, and it kind of came together a little bit later for them, I think, for Carolina. So they're a dangerous team, and I think part of it is because there's so much uncertainty about some of these other teams more than anything else. Like, I like Carolina. Do I love them as much as UConn and Houston? I do not. No. So I think, look, Carolina, a lot of people are not picking them to make it all the way to the Final Four as a 1 seed.
I think, it's interesting because I look at potentially you could beat them. Now, Michigan State is not good. This is not a good Michigan State version. So I like Mississippi State actually in that game. St. Mary's is an interesting team.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they could play defense as well. They'll bang the 3. They're a senior-laden team, and they'll play defense on you.
I think they're actually going to have a pretty decent game against Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Which sometimes playing a tight game in the first round is not the worst thing if you can escape that. I agree with you about St. Mary's. And this team, I don't know, they look a little bit different to me this year. Like that could be potentially a pitfall for Carolina if that ended up being that matchup.
I agree, and I think they could beat Alabama. I'm a little off on Alabama, who's the 4 seed. You look at the bottom, you got Arizona's the 2 seed, and then Baylor is the 3 seed. That's the bottom of the West bracket. What do you think about Arizona?
I like Arizona's chances to get to the Elite 8. And, is that going to be Carolina sitting there, or is that going to be somebody else that knocks them off? I think Arizona has a really good team, pretty well-balanced team.
How about Baylor? Another Big 12. We talk about Baylor, and another team that dependable, play a tough schedule. They're tough down the stretch. They'll bang 3s on you. They play defense.
played Iowa State fairly tough. When you look at what Iowa State did to Houston, that's pretty, was pretty impressive. They played them well. They took Houston to overtime 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is they're legit. They've got size, they've got athleticism, they got shooting. So I think Baylor's a team that could be kind of dangerous. So
all right. So to recap, you see an upset in the West region, right? Like because we don't see chalk. I don't see Carolina coming through.
That's the one that when I did my bracket, that's the one number 1 seed that I didn't have going to the Final Four, because I think the other 3 have a great chance. I'm going to stick with Purdue because I'm not sure who else you're going to take out of it. Is it Tennessee or Creighton? Probably one of those 2 teams. If you're looking at the Purdue bracket and thinking that they're not going to make it through, could be dead wrong, because again they could feel the pressure of all that. And if somebody defends Edie well, maybe they go down. But I picked Purdue, Houston, UConn, all 3 teams to make it to the Final Four.
You know what's interesting is that when you look at Purdue, let's look at that Midwest and Purdue there, because when you look at that region, they got a really good draw. Because if you think about it,
they did.
You got a layup in your first round, and then you got TCU. I think TCU beats Utah State, and I don't think TCU could beat Purdue. And then if you go further down, I think Kansas as the 4th seed is not good. Don't get fooled on this Kansas team. This Kansas team is not very good.
I've seen a couple people out there that are, have pretty big reputations picking Samford in that first game.
I can see it.
And Kansas got guys out too. They've got some big losses. They're not going to have full strength for that game. I don't know if I'd go that far, but they might throw a scare into them.
It's interesting because on the Bet Parks app, they're only 7.5 against Samford. So people think
that tells
Kansas,
you a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that says a lot.
I mean, look, we're here.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
They do.
These guys are experts. They know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Think about that. Kansas and Samford, and you got a 7.5 point line. That tells you a lot.
They could beat them.
That could be one of those games that's like 32-30 at halftime, and then Kansas starts feeling that.
Yeah, exactly. And if not, you got Gonzaga and McNeese State. This isn't a great Gonzaga team. They're good.
Right.
It's
not like some of the ones they've had in the past.
Nah. Look, I think they can beat Kansas, but I think Purdue goes all the way to that final, to that regional final.
I like Creighton too. So if at some point you could get Creighton and Tennessee matched up, right? One of those 2 teams most likely, if Purdue is able to escape it, it's going to be one of those 2 teams most likely that's going to take them on to go to the Final Four.
So let me ask you about Tennessee, because they have such a great player, and it's really a one-man team, like in a lot of ways. Is that a disadvantage? How much of a disadvantage, I should say, is it to have that you're relying on one guy like that? Because if he has one bad game, you're done.
That's true, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said for going out onto the court and you feeling as a team like you have the best player in the game, right? And the way that he played in the year that he had, they're going to feel like that every game. That's what they're going to feel like they're walking out of running out of that tunnel with. That gives you a tremendous amount of confidence. Now, and I've been in this boat before, even as an NBA player, when your star players are struggling, it does definitely kind of permeate the rest of the roster, right? You feel it, because now you're like, man, if he's struggling right now, guys have to step out of their lane.
I was watching the SEC tournament, and that's really what happened.
Yep. Oh no doubt. He's a hell of a player though, and so I don't necessarily think you're going to see him run into something that he's not going to be able to handle. He's really impressive.
So tell me about him. What do you think? Because he can do everything. He can shoot.
He's tough.
The way
strong.
he slashes.
He finishes with strength through people. He can shoot the basketball. He can shoot the basketball off the dribble. I think the number one quality Connect has is he's relentless. He's relentless, and that's what I think people are now starting to be drawn to him for, because he just never stops coming at you.
Now, when you watch Tennessee and you watch Connect play, you see him. He just never stops. He's just always. You can't take your eyes off him.
Yeah,
which is fun.
Right.
And
it was interesting to see, because it really kind of kicked in mid-season.
Yeah.
Right. That's when all of a sudden you're watching him every night.
Yeah.
And you're watching highlights. You're catching highlights at the end of the night. You're like, wow, because they're talking about him every single game that they're playing, and now all of a sudden his name takes on a larger-than-life feel to it.
And keeping it 100% real, and everybody in basketball circles will talk about it, a domestic white player, right, like that has that kind of skill and that kind of success is going to garner a lot of attention.
Hey, wait till Cooper Flagg hits the scene at Duke, all right? I mean, you're talking about he might be the best, like, American-born white prospect since Bird, potentially, Cooper Flagg. So he's got a lot of the same qualities. And you know what Connect has and Cooper Flagg also has, who's going to Duke? He'll be a one-and-done, or he'd probably be the #1 pick in the draft. They've got a nastiness to them that you have to have. Like, they got an edge to them, like a meanness almost. Like, they respond to the challenge. Like, the more you talk to them, the worse it's going to get for you, because they respond to that kind of thing. And Connect has kind of got some of that in him, man. He's a gamer. He's a gamer. He's a tough kid. So I don't like to your point. Look, if he has an off night, they're in trouble. For sure. But I also think his game is so versatile. Like, what are the odds that he has an off night? Because he's going to find other ways to put the ball in the basket.
Well, it'll be interesting if it turns out to be Tennessee and Purdue, because you got, two teams with two, like, one-headed monsters. And that's kind of what they are. They're both one-headed monsters. But before we go to the other region, in South region in Dallas, I got to bring something up, because you said something that is so on point when you talk about Connect or talk about Cooper Flagg, and it's the mentality. Like the mentality, and we were talking about kids, right? So Legs is my go-to when we talk about youth basketball, and we were talking about the difference between a suburban ball player and a city kid, like a real tough, city kid that's tested, the whole thing. And you need that to get to another level in that sport. You've got to be a killer.
Yeah, and especially the road you have to take in AAU, because you have to be in the AAU tracks, right? You have to be in that. And there's some pros and cons. I know a lot of people beat up AAU basketball, and there's definitely some cons to it. There's also some great opportunities there, particularly if it's a well-run program and they're getting good coaching. The exposure, like, there's nothing you can do to replicate the exposure that you're going to get. You can change your life over a period of one weekend or a period of one AAU season. You can change your life as a player. So I love the opportunity that guys get. But what you have to go through when you're talking about a sport that's supposed to be a team sport, and now you are put into situations that are basically showcase events, right? Individually, you're trying to grab one of those scholarships. You're trying to get one of those schools to offer you, right? And so now you're trying to get 10 kids to play together because the product's better, and ultimately they'll all benefit.
Right.
But at the same time, you know what's in their head when they're playing.
I got to shine.
So if you don't have some of that in you, right, that you got to go grab your piece too, you're going to get swallowed up. There's no doubt about it. You have to be mentally tough and understand that what you're going to have to do and how relentless you're going to have to be. And look, I was kind of cut out that way, so it worked for me. Doesn't work for everybody.
Well, and a piece of it is too, like, you're going up against older kids.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like you had a great story about, playing a kid with a tattoo on his calf.
Yeah, 12. 12 years old.
Like,
so more than one goatee at 12 years old too.
Exactly.
Like, really? Yeah. It's a funny story. I was coaching in a tournament, and my assistant coach, actually, we're sitting there looking at this kid. These are 12-year-olds, and I mean, this kid's full goatee, and we're just like, and my assistant coach had a goatee, and so somebody's shooting free throws, and this kid is like wandering over by our bench, and my assistant coach goes, "Hey, my man," and he looks over and he goes, "How do you keep that so tight, man? I'm just gonna give you some tips on, like, how to, they're having this conversation during the game, and so the game ends, and we lose, and like, this kid's dominant. He's bigger and stronger and tough. It's a big difference. I think he was probably 15, right? And maybe just was also maturing faster, even for a 15-year-old. But literally, he was probably like 15 years old, because the game ends, and now I'm talking to my team in the lobby of the gym, like in the front of the gym, and I look up, and there's like a game getting ready to start on another court with older kids, and he's in layup lines with that team.
No.
Yeah. So like,
no.
So it kind of validated what we thought. But yeah, so listen, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and but now it's a different world, man. Everybody's reclassifying, and kids are getting held back, or they're prepping a year, or whatever. So it's not always apples to apples when you're looking at two kids playing against each other at that level.
And we're on a tangent. I want to get back to the South region in a moment, but it's so interesting that the world and the world of reclassification, like I saw it from the football standpoint, we played a team because my kids play my kids in 8th grade, right? So they played a team. I mean, these kids were like 16 and 17 years old, and like when you're playing against football players that are 16, 17 years old, I mean,
it's dangerous.
It is,
yeah, no doubt.
Like kids, they couldn't block, right? Quarterbacks getting thrown up, and there's a rule that if you're up by 28 or more, that you can only run the ball, right?
Yeah.
So they missed the extra. So there's 2 minutes to go in the first half. They missed the extra point on purpose to go 27.
But then
they get the ball back and go down the field, score to make it 34-0. But my point to you is, whether it's basketball or football, at some point it levels out.
It does. It does.
So
but
what are you? What is your aim? I mean, I get.
You got a lot of adversity to face getting there, a lot of doors to kick down. Before it finally does, you feel like everybody's on an equal plane. But that's years down the road, man. You got to navigate those early years, and it starts younger than ever. And that's the hard thing about it too, is because you're asking more kids to specialize in a sport at a younger age if they want to be in that track, right?
Yeah.
And that's difficult. Because I coach kids in AAU basketball, and by the time we got to be 14 through 17, the big years, we were on the Under Armour circuit. We're playing a national tournament schedule. The kids, they might have been great baseball players. We'll never know,
right?
Because that's baseball season.
Yeah.
It's March to July, right? Spring and early summer.
Yeah.
That's baseball. I had kids that I coached over the years, early days, that were probably going to be really good basketball players, but they loved baseball. And they dropped off the team because it was baseball season. And I didn't have to do that. And guys my age didn't have to do that. You just played your sport, your season. And then if you had one you loved, you found a way to play that year round. But it never interfered with you playing your other sports, baseball, football, whatever you wanted to play. It's not necessarily the case now.
I know.
Unless you're a freak. If you're a freak, you can do it. But that's the 1/10 of 1,000,000%. Right?
Exactly.
That's that rare kid, because the coaches are going to let him do that. Like, oh, you didn't play fall ball? Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're that good, we need you.
There's that pressure. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you got to play fall ball. You got to. I'm like, well, what if the kid wants to play football? I mean, like, it's a better thing. But let me get back to it. Let's get back to the tournament. So let's get to the South region. All right, this is Houston. So if you look up top, you got Houston. I'll tell you a team that I like that got hosed. They got a bad draw, and it's Nebraska. I like that Nebraska team.
Yeah.
They run. They're deep. They move the basketball. And the shame is, you got to go face Houston in the second round. In the second round.
Yeah, look, and I even think the Texas A&M game is not going to be an easy game for them either. By the way,
but I think they win that game. I like them.
They are 3.5-point favorites in that game, so that tells you right there that's expected to come down to, that's going to be a one-possession game with 2 minutes to go. So that's really could go either way. But you're right, the reward you get for that and having a good year and like getting people's attention is you get Houston in the next round.
I know, and they played like I enjoyed them because they played a game fun. That's a fun team. You got an NBA coach.
And he took some hits early on, man. When he first went back there, he took some hits, but he stayed the course. At one point, it looked like maybe his job security wasn't great.
I know.
But he turned it around, and they finally had the kind of year that they were expected to have when he came in there.
Yeah. So you got Nebraska, and then with Tennessee, you're going to have in the bottom part of that upper region, you got Wisconsin and Duke. So Duke plays Vermont.
Yeah.
So we always talk about the Blue Bloods, and Duke is always one of the first ones. Do you like this Duke team? Can this Duke team put things together? We saw Carolina own them. Can Duke put it together and make a run and maybe upset a Houston?
Yeah, what happened with the Carolina game was really interesting, man, right? Because that was, to me, the kind of game that tells you a lot about a team. So I'm not in love with this Duke team as much as I thought I would when I looked at their recruiting class and who they had.
Yeah.
They haven't had that kind of year. Now, but it's still Duke, man. And these the kids that you have in there, they're capable at any given night of putting that together. So you're going to be shocked if Duke goes on a run. They beat Vermont, then they beat Wisconsin. Now here you go. You're playing Houston potentially in a Sweet 16 game. No one's going to be surprised by that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because Wisconsin, they had a nice run in the Big Ten tournament. They're another team. I sometimes I watch them, and I don't know how they win, but they win.
Yeah, they do. They always find a way. They got 13 losses, man. You know what I mean? But they're in every. I feel like they're in every game. Like every game for them, it feels tight. And they're playing a team, by the way.
And
James
this is not
Madison,
like your Bo Ryan, Wisconsin.
No, not the same thing. James Madison, by the way, is 31-3. Like if you're not, if you lost track. Now, if you look at their schedule, pretty light, right? But they're 31-3. They're used to winning games. I'm not saying they're going to beat Wisconsin, but I'm really curious to see how a team that's 31-3, fares against a team like that's in one of these power conferences like Wisconsin. And can they give them a battle because they're so used to winning games? That's all they know.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
I think the South region is the best region. It's the toughest region.
Yeah,
because you look at the bottom half of it. Marquette is very, very good. And Kentucky is another team, man. Kentucky puts it all together.
Yep.
They look unstoppable at times.
And also, NC State, Texas Tech is going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah.
And NC State's got to be feeling great about themselves right now. Like that was an improbable run. But you got momentum and you've got confidence on your side going into that. And then you got Marquette down there at the bottom of that bracket.
And Marquette's good. And listen, I don't not in love with Florida. So I like Marquette. Marquette could actually, Marquette, Kentucky is a great game. That could be a really interesting game.
Florida's going to actually get, Boise State or Colorado, right? They're going to get the winner of that game tonight. In that first game, I think that's going to be a very interesting game.
You think Colorado can beat?
Yeah,
I like Colorado to win.
I think Colorado can win that game, and I think that might be an interesting game with Florida.
Yeah, I could see Florida losing. I don't think Florida's that good. All right, coming up, we're going to get one team to watch in each of the regions that can make some noise. But I do want to tell you that we are brought to you by the Great Parks Casino, because we're here now, and this is like the calm before the storm. So like tomorrow, this place will be wall to wall. It'll be incredible. And it's that whole rush of all games in the afternoon, right, Andrew? That's Andrew, our producer. And it's going to be crazy. Like, it's going to be going nuts. So make sure, if you can't be here, you download the Bet Parks app. Don't forget the last two playing games, like Leg said, tonight at 6:40 p.m. Montana State, 3.5 against Grambling State. Colorado, like we said, is 2.5 over Boise. And I like Colorado in that game. Download the Bet Park Sportsbook app. Make your futures bet right now on who you think will win. You can live bet on all the tournament action as you watch the games. It's incredible. The latest odds, your top 5 favorites. UConn, they're 4-1, $25 bet, brings back 100. Then Houston, then Purdue, then Arizona, and then North Carolina. We both don't like North Carolina, but $25 if North Carolina wins it all, will bring back $400. The only sports betting app that I'll ever recommend, the Bet Park Sportsbook app. New users, join me. Download the Bet Park Sportsbook app now. Make a winning $10 sports bet. You get $125 in sportsbook bonus back. BetParks.com has all the details. The BetParks app, safe. It's easy to use. Right, simple. You got it. It's great. You got to be 21. You got to be in PA, New Jersey, Maryland. You have a gambling problem, you call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. Bet Parks. All right, so let's go through the tournament, the brackets themselves. One team to keep an eye on, the Legs team that you're intrigued by.
So not the obvious answers.
No.
So that you're not looking for that,
no.
right?
I want the one team in each of these regions that, you have an interest. You look at this team, you go, that's a team I'm looking forward to watch and can make some noise.
Auburn, I would go with in the East.
Auburn, okay.
And my man, Bruce Pearl. He's the best. And I've got just getting to know him, right? And you get that relationship with a guy. He's just the best. So you always have a little bit of a rooting interest. I'm not an Auburn alum.
Right, right.
There's certain guys. I've got a lot of friends in the coaching industry. And some of these guys I just pull for a little bit more because you get to know them, the humanity of them. So Bruce Pearl's a good dude.
It's funny, I hear great things about him.
Yeah.
What makes him? He's a charismatic figure.
He is 100%. He comes off, and the reason that he can go into people's homes and he can get kids, parents to want to send their kid to play for Bruce Pearl. He just comes off as genuine. He's genuine, and that's what you feel like you're dealing with. And so parents want that. They don't feel like they're trying to see through you.
Right.
And you're hitting people with a bunch of layers of BS. that's not Bruce Pearl. And he's just a gregarious guy. He's funny, right? He's warm. Like, you know, she sees him showing emotion in the SEC tournament, like, because he feels he feels for the kids.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, he's all in on the kids, and that comes across when you meet him, when you know him.
All right, let's go down to the West region. The legs team to watch in the West region.
It's kind of like Nevada a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
A little bit. And look, they got Dayton in the first round. That's going to be a pick'em game.
Yeah.
I actually think Nevada's going to win that game.
Nevada's won on the Bet Parks app.
Nevada's going to win that game. And I think if they win that game, you got Arizona in the next round. And Arizona is a good team, but Arizona's also had some clunkers.
Yeah.
But they didn't play where you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I thought I knew who they were, and now you're not so sure. So I think Nevada's kind of an interesting team to me. I'm trying to go a little bit outside the box.
I'm glad. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about Arizona? They have the soul of a I don't want to say choker because that's too harsh, but go back to the Lute Olson days, right? Like, listen, they've had some great teams and they've won it.
Yeah.
But they've also underachieved.
No doubt. I've got good friends that are like diehard Arizona fans, and they get so tense this time of year.
Yeah.
They get so nervous going into the tournament every single year. They're worried something's going to go off the rails early.
That's right.
Maybe that's Nevada potentially the second round.
All right. How about the South region? Who's the legs team that you're looking forward to watch?
NC State. I think whoever wins that game,
like them.
whoever wins that game, I think has potentially could make some noise, man. Could make some noise.
So do you think NC State could beat Kentucky?
I do.
Wow.
I do.
So what about this Kentucky team? Because
I always have question marks about Cal.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I do. I do. I've got question marks about Cal. Cal gets great players. I don't know that Cal is the guy that you necessarily want, man, if that's a tight game, 10 minutes to go. I think it starts to affect them, and we need answers right now. We need answers. It doesn't matter if I was a 5-star recruit. I don't know what we're doing against this pick and roll right now. What do we do?
You know what's funny? You just said that. We need answers. So I got to get you to tell a story. So, I don't know. This is a while back, and the Sixers needed a coach. And I was pretending I'm interviewing legs to be the coach. If I told you your answer was unbelievable. In fact, it was so good. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't even know where you're going with this.
It was so good, your answer, that I had people all over social media saying, oh, my God, I want legs to be the next coach of the Sixers.
I do remember that part of it, but I don't remember the specific of our conversation.
So I said, well, how would you sell, like if you're a coach coming in to that locker room, how do you sell it? How do you sell yourself? How do you get them to buy in? And you said, and the reason why it just kind of sparked my memory, Legs said, you got to show them that you're the smartest guy in the room and that you have the answers. But you don't just say it. You go in and you talk about it and you let them understand that you're the guy that has the answers and they'll follow.
It's coming back to me now, and I think what I was alluding to there was if you really
this
want
was after Doc Rivers, so
if you really want to convince a new group of guys, right, you want to garner their respect right away. There's a lot of different methodology to that and how you can do it. But one of the best ways is when you're talking about cleaning stuff up. Because, look, I wouldn't be here as a new coach if stuff didn't need to get cleaned up. And here's specifically what needs to get cleaned up. Here's what I'm seeing, and here's what has to be cleaned up right away. You don't just tell them what it is. You give them such detail as to why something small is significant, it matters. Whether it's the angle at which you receive a pass on an entry pass out to the wing, positioning in the post, the timing on weak side help, like those kinds of things, and why. And that's what I was priding myself in when I was coaching my guys, was stopping it. Every time I stop, do it again. Here's why. And this little stuff matters so much because it's amazing, even at the NBA level, how much guys are seeking that. Because that's the extra 10%. How do we squeeze 10 more percent? Because it's not like typically it's been an epic disaster. It's like, no, teams underachieved a little bit, or they just can't, they just, they're 500 and they can't quite get to the next level. So guys are looking, how do we squeeze 10% more juice out of this roster right now? Knowing that they're probably a new coach, they're going to want to improve the roster, obviously. But no, with what we have here, if we just do these things, you're going to be amazed at the results and how much cleaner things get. And guys are craving that, even at the NBA level.
Yeah.
They want answers. And it's especially big in important moments in games, in huddles, that you have an answer for what's going on and not just be vague about it or just yell at a guy, come on! That's not an answer.
I know.
That doesn't do it for
Rebound.
me. Right.
Like you go to huddle, like you'll see, like, coach, let's go inside the huddle. Let's go, guys. Play defense. Rebound.
Right.
All right.
I try to look. And the thing is, look, I'm not saying you're always right, but I do know this: every single thing that ever came out of my mouth, and it'll be the same way now in this job I have now. It's going to be said with conviction.
Yeah.
Because I believe it in my heart, and part of it is getting you guys to believe based on my conviction. Because it's going to make you give me your full effort to do what I'm asking. So if you doubt it from the beginning, because I came off in a way that I didn't sound too sure of myself, you're not buying in as a player, which means you're not going to do that 100% the way I'm asking you to. You got to have guys open their mind up to it, and you do that by looking self-assured and saying it with conviction and with detail. They want detail as to why this is a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than just, it's my way or the highway. No, well, here's why. This is why. And guys really respond to that.
I got to tell you, when you said that, like, the phone just blew up. Like, everybody blew up going, oh, my God. Like, Legs needs to be, on the short list.
And I will say what I just said, I just made something incredibly difficult sound very easy, right? And that's what you do as an analyst, right? I make incredibly complicated things sound very easy, right? And that's what you have. That's another way that you have to survive in this industry, right? Make it sound easy. What I'm about to say, it's very complicated stuff because you're dealing with massive egos too at the NBA level, right? And guys that are they're grown men and they make a lot more money than the head coach does, and so that's hard sometimes to get guys to buy in.
Let's look at the Midwest region and give me the Legs special in the Midwest region.
How about Creighton?
Oh, yeah. I love Creighton.
Yeah, so do I.
I love Creighton.
And
they shoot the ball really well.
I've always loved that program.
Yeah, me too.
He does such a great job with that. And it's always like there's a different guy on Creighton that you fall in love with. Every one of their teams. Yeah. And they just get the most out of them. So, and I watch that conference a lot. So Creighton, to me, is one of those teams that I would look at. No, there are three, so that's not like some huge leap. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about Creighton making any sort of run.
Not at all.
Because they would end up getting Tennessee to go to the Elite Eight.
And by the way, they could beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
They could beat Tennessee and they could beat Purdue. They could be I think you're right. I think that's the potential, upset the apple cart is Creighton. They're the one that can make this whole thing go haywire.
Agree with you.
All right, let me ask you just a couple things. The idea of this tournament, right? Like, in a lot of ways, historically, like, this is a historic March. The women's tournament has garnered a lot of attention. It's a fascinating tournament. And what do you think now? We talk about one and dones, and we talk about the movement and the portal and all that stuff. But when you think about the women's tournament, it's captivating. You were talking about it, like how, fascinating the whole thing is.
And I think you hit on it something early. You've gotten to watch some of these players for 4 years. You've gotten to watch them grow up, and you kind of became intrigued with them early on, right? They make some noise in these bigger programs. You watch a girl like Caitlin Clark play for the last 4 years, and what she's doing every night. I think she's one of the most entertaining basketball players I've ever watched. I could watch Caitlin Clark play every single night and be entertained by it. I like her competitiveness. I like her flair. Like she brings an entertainment value to it that's also skill-based, though. She's not just out there doing it for the sake of showing off. Like, the fact that, she'll pull where Curry pulls, so she'll pull, he'll do that maybe a couple times a game, and usually it's like late clock situation or whatever, or he's really feeling it, right? He'll pull one from 30 out of the backcourt. She does 4 of those a half. Yeah. She'll take 8 of those a game from that distance, right?
It's ridiculous.
The flair with her passing and, her nerve to make passes in important moments and to trust teammates that are inferior players to her, to trust them to make a play and thread the needle with a pass to get the game on the line. Like, I've seen her do that so many times. So I think it's, she has raised awareness of the women's tournament unlike just about any individual player, in recent memory. And that's why everybody's like so tuned into it. She is box office. Like,
she is.
Like the
amazing.
NCAA Women's Committee, right, is just praying and who carries their Final Four? Is that ESPN? Right, okay. Yeah. They're praying. There's no upset, especially with Caitlin Clark and Iowa.
Sure.
And you're hoping, obviously, that you would get, South Carolina and Iowa. Like, you get that matchup because South Carolina still undefeated.
Yeah.
Clearly the best team in the country. Look unbeatable almost. And you would have them going up against Caitlin Clark in that group. Like, that would be the number that game would do.
My God.
Women's basketball tournament would be amazing.
What's also impressive, though, too, is the quality of play. Like, the level of, you talk about the beauty of the game in a lot of ways because the players are together and they grow together. The level, the play is just more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and I coached women's basketball for a long time, too. Coached my daughter for years. I have a lot of respect for the game and what went into it. The thing I love about it is when you watch women's basketball, you'll see, girls that are playing inside are power players. And sometimes these girls 6'4", 6'5", and up. And then they'll step out to the top of the key and, the ball get reversed and they'll just turn and shoot a perfectly formed jump shot. Or they go to the line. Like the free throws, they don't hit the rim. Like all these girls. It's so the skill component, the amount of repetition that they've put into that because they're not practicing the athletic parts. They're not practicing flying through the air after practice for half an hour trying to get that windmill dunk down. No, they're going to spend 30 minutes after practice working on free throw shooting and the skill components of the game. So yes, there's something about that I just highly respect. Like when they go to the line in pressure situations, you just feel like it's like money. They're going to make no matter who it is, no matter what the player is, they're going to make these two free throws when they have to have it.
And you're right, it's always like splash.
Yeah.
Like you just
pure.
see
It's pure. The mechanics are so good. I can't wait to watch the women's tournament.
How do you teach shooting?
We don't have enough time left in this show.
I love it.
I treat it like a science.
We're going to get to NBA.
I treat it like a science. Yeah, I could talk about it for hours.
But give me the. Is it geometry? Is it like when you're just take a free throw, right? And you look at the front rim.
Visually it's that. But I think if I really kind of started at the most fundamental core thing that you have to be able to develop is the proper what I call correlation between up and out, because most young players, they're either too much out and it's a flat shot, or it's too much up and they're finishing this way and there's too much arc in the ball.
Because you know why? They get the bad habits when they're kids.
A big part of it. And that's why I'm big on when they're younger. It's fine if you want to let them practice as they're getting pretty good at a 9-foot hoop to raise the hoop. If you can do that in your driveway, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But until a kid is mastering his mechanics on a 9-foot hoop at that age, 7, 8, 9 years old, until you're mastering that, then why are you going up to a 10-foot hoop? Because they're absolutely going to change and alter their mechanics just to get the ball up there. And sometimes those habits form, and they become very difficult to break. I was very lucky, Anthony, in that I didn't really play organized basketball until I was 13, 14 years old. I was already big. I was strong enough. I'd watched guys on TV, right, that I tried to emulate. So when I picked up a basketball, I had pretty good form.
Plus, you had to touch,
right off the bat.
Like that. There's a guy.
Well, there's an innate part of it. I agree with that.
You see it. It's like that. You just see that.
There's something to be said for great shooters. I think some component of it is born and not taught. I do believe there's some, because you have to have depth perception. That's an innate thing to understand, to be able to adjust distance quickly on the fly. And some people, believe it or not, some people I've worked with, get the mechanics down where it looks beautiful, but the ball's just never going in because they can't adjust with the feel of the depth perception.
You know what's funny? Just talking about shooting. I love shooting, right? Just that. There's a couple things in sports that I love, throwing a football and hitting a spot, shooting. Especially when there's always that moment, and you know it better than anybody, right? Which is when you get hot. When you get hot and the thing just, you don't even have to look. You know it's going in.
Well, there's a place you get to as a shooter when you feel that way. It's when it's just 100% muscle memory. That's all it is. There's not any thought process going into it because you just know. I use the word certainty a lot when I'm breaking down the game, and some players get there on a certain night or in the course of a certain season or some stage of their career. Teams get there. There's a certainty about the way they're playing where there's no doubt, and there's no right. You're not fazed by anything. You're not affected by anything. You're certain of the outcome. And shooters, all great ones, they get into that mode sometimes where you're right. It's like, just get my right hand free, and it's going in. That's all I need, a little bit of space.
I like to see you, like, especially, like, it doesn't matter how far you go back. We talk about raising up from, 38, but it's different when you're coming at you, bring the defense out on you. But if you just get a little room and you're hot, it's money.
Yeah, it's because it's just you've done it so much, man. Your body just takes over.
Yeah.
And the muscle memory is the part that you're trying to train young players to get to understand.
All right, I want to talk Sixers and I want to talk NBA. All right, but first, of course, let's talk about our good friends right here at Bet Parks, man. That's where we're here. We're loving it. So you can see the sports book behind legs. It's just going to be amazing. The lines are going on. The game's tomorrow at tip-off at noon for this tournament. It's going to be incredible. Make sure you can go futures. If you see like who you like, you heard some long shots, right? Legs gave you a couple. I like that Creighton team to get to the Final Four. That's interesting, man. There's all kinds of props. Download the Bet Park Sportsbook app. It's great. It's the only one I'll ever recommend. In fact, right now, if you make a winning $10 sports bet, you'll get $125 in sportsbook bonus. Have some fun with it. BetParks.com's got all the details. The Bet Parks app is safe. It's easy, simple to use. You got to be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. Bet Parks. All right. I love the round ball, and we're talking the state of round ball. So let's talk about the state of the NBA. And we're on PHLY, which I'm thankful to be on right now. And by the way, stay tuned because we're going to have some more of this stuff going on soon. Sixers. And obviously everything's wait and see because of Joel. It's been the one thing that we've seen from this team has been the evolution of Maxey, right? Like Maxey has shown you that he's a legitimate superstar that can bring and that can carry a team.
And I get reluctant sometimes to use the word superstar because I feel like if you use that word, you are talking about a player that you believe as the best player can take a team like to the finals.
Right.
I don't know if he's quite there. There's no doubt he's a star.
Right.
And he's going to be a perennial all-star. He's on that level, and who knows?
I guess that's kind of what but you're right. You're right. Super
I think that's different. Like, that's when you're talking about you build around them.
Yeah.
And you add pieces around them, right? Like, I actually think, like, Brunson is getting into that category.
Agreed, yeah.
Okay? The reason is because he's in total control of every possession, and you cannot affect him. And I use that word a lot, too. You're not affected by scheme. They're not affected by personnel that's in front of them, like a particular type of guy bothers them. You're not affected certainly by the moment. Brunson like embraces the stage like nobody I've ever seen.
And what's around you, right? Like they've had Julius Randle's been out,
yep.
Mitchell Robinson, like all their bigs.
They brought in Anunoby. They immediately go like 7-1. Then he gets hurt, and the record with him is incredible. But I look, despite all that, like you look at. No matter how you look at that, he's their best player. Clearly their best player. And in this case, like Embiid is clearly their best player.
Right.
Embiid's the guy that could potentially take you there. Now that he has the right running mate, this could have been the year. Who knows? I mean, Boston looks like almost unbeatable.
Yeah.
But maybe a conference final appearance if they avoided Boston's bracket if Embiid's there. Now, look, there's a lot of talk out there about him coming back and practicing, and he's progressing, and you're hearing all kinds of positive talk. It's the single biggest X factor that would drop on a conference ever if Joel Embiid's able to come back with 5-6 games to go And look, at that point, look at it right now. They're still are they in play-in territory right now?
So they are right now.
They're sixth.
The sixth seed.
But they're one game up in the loss column on Indiana and Miami. So you're talking about 6, 7, and 8. Very much like the West. Those teams are going to be flip-flopping each other all the time, right? So now let's say they're lucky enough to stay 6 somehow.
Yes.
And Embiid comes back, 5, 6 games to go. And you're 6, and your first round opponent, you get, most likely you get Cleveland or the Knicks. You're going to tell me Philadelphia's not going to think they can win that series? Right. And now, second round, you're getting the Bucks. You're not getting Boston until the conference finals if you can get the 6th spot. Now, if you get 7, 8, and you win, or 8 especially, if you end up in the 8th spot, right off the bat, you got to play Boston. And they're not going to beat Boston. But if you can get into the 6th spot and avoid the Celtics for 2 rounds, and Embiid, you would think each game
progresses,
get a little stronger, get better stamina. I mean, listen, there's a lot of ifs, and that's a lot of time to miss.
Well, let's
come
talk
back
about
and jump
that
into
for a
the
second.
fray. Like that's hard. That's really hard to have that kind of impact. But he is so dominant that if somebody can do it and have that big of a difference for a team to be able to win a series or win 2, he would be the guy. So I'm as interested as anybody else to see if he's actually going to be able to pull this off and come back.
All right, so let's talk about, let's go the what if route. What if he comes back and you're ready? What does the supporting cast look like to you? You get Lowry now, you got Oubre, Tobias still the same Tobias. Like, what do you see in their supporting cast right now? Do you like it? Like, you got the 2 of them up top. Obviously, Nick Nurse is a huge upgrade, I think, to Doc.
Oh, yeah, and I think that, where you really are going to see that pay dividends is in the game-to-game adjustments and preparation in a playoff series. I think that is an area that I think, fairly so you could have criticized Doc Rivers for. And it wasn't just in Philly. It was the same thing with the Clippers. So Nick Nurse, I think, is a guy that I think people have already seen that in him. But you're not really going to see the benefit of Nick Nurse until you get into those situations. It's 2-2 in a series. This is the pivotal game. What are we doing differently based on the fact we just lost by 15 in Game 4? And now what are we doing differently to adjust to that? And it could be something subtly with the rotations. It could be something you're running schematically, defensively. It could be a critical timeout and what you run out of that when you have to have a quality possession. These are all things that the Sixers struggled with, as we know, for the last several years in the postseason. It was like maddening. Now, part of it was, and I've said this before, to give Doc a little bit of a break. I've said, can you imagine being a head coach of a team all season long? You get to the playoffs, and think about what he had to deal with at the lead guard position between Simmons and Harden. Now, that's not easy, man.
No.
Especially, so in Harden's case, this is a guy that plays a certain way. Very ball dominant. He's during the regular season, he's lights out. He's almost unguardable, unstoppable. And now here you are, and you're in a 7-game series, and let's take the Celtics series, for example. And he was sensational in Game 1, obviously. No Embiid, right? They shocked the world. He has a great game. He was great in Game 4, right? The other 5 games, he shoots like under 30% from the field and averages 11 points a game. My point with Harden was always, the problem with Harden is there's no denying he's a superstar talent. His floor was lower than any other star player in the league. In other words, when he was bad and he was in that dark place, you can't win. Because he's got the ball all the time, and he just loses aggressiveness. He loses confidence. He doesn't even read the game the right way. Right.
During that series, I had you on every day, and we were talking about that. That was the most maddening thing about him, is that you can't overcome him.
And before that, you had Simmons with the Atlanta series. Right?
Yeah.
So my point is this. You're not going to have that problem with Tyrese Maxey. You're not. He's not going to wilt. Now, he doesn't mean he's going to play great every night. He might have some bad shooting games in a series. He will not change the way he plays or his confidence level.
Yeah.
Therefore, he's going to have a pretty typical, normal amount of success in any playoff series, even if he has a game or two that he's not great. He's going to be the same guy. And guess what? That means now everybody can play the same way. They're not all looking around at each other like, how are we supposed to win now if our main ball handler looks like that? That's one thing that Doc did have to deal with that Nick Nurse will not, because Maxey's not going to be like that.
What do you think? What else is around?
Well,
them?
you got Healed. I mean, that's a good pickup, man.
Yeah.
Like the way he plays
Some
off
of those role players, like between Buddy Healed,
Oubre's a great pickup.
right?
Yeah,
he
no,
was.
he is. And he's exactly what they needed, and you saw at the beginning of the year.
Even Batum as a defender,
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
No, look, and you bring in Kyle Lowry. That's like the grit and the experience component of that pays off. None of it's going to matter without getting 21 back.
No,
so that's what the whole thing hinges on.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, all right, well, when he comes back. Now, no, okay, so let's look at next year. Obviously, Tobias off the books, you know, what do you think? Now, looking at Joel now, going to be in his 30s, right? Like, Maxey ascending. It's win now.
Oh, no
right?
doubt.
You're going to
no
have
doubt.
you'll have assets. Daryl Morey will have assets
Yeah, well, I think
to go, like, do this thing.
I think you get to a place with a player like Joel Embiid and his injury history and how great he is. You know, he's like one of the most, if not the most dominant scoring force in the NBA. Every year is must win. Every year that you have him. It's just like I'm hearing people say, like, you know, with Lillard and Antetokounmpo, they're starting to play better together now. But like Lillard hasn't looked like himself, and people are like, well, you know, it's what about next year or the year after? What do they need to add? I'm like, do you understand when you pair Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, like every year, win?
Yes.
This year,
Yes.
and if you don't, it's a failed season. That doesn't mean that you blow it up.
Right.
You're going to have another chance next year, right? But you can't describe it any other way. And it's the same way with Joel Embiid on your roster. Like, you expect to win. You expect to contend if you have a guy like that on your team. And injuries have prevented that. And, you know, and some teammates not playing well in the postseason, and him also having some moments in the postseason. It's a shame because I thought maybe they were past it the way they looked earlier in the year.
The shame, and you're right. And the shame was, is it unfair that Embiid gets lumped into the Harden situation from last year?
I think it's unfair the way that some people do. You know what's weird to me is, and I know because I get the reaction on the national level when I go on some of the national stuff about Harden, and the pushback from like that group of people that are obsessed with him. And you're like, wow, like no matter what, they just can't see the reality of the way he played.
It's bizarre.
Because like this isn't personal. I don't have an agenda here. I have no issue with James Harden, but you're not going to tell me that I didn't see something that I saw. And it wasn't just last year. It was other years too. But it's amazing.
I mean, flat out, listen.
And the first thing they would say, by the way, the first thing that group of people says
is
Embiid.
Yeah.
It's the first thing they'll say.
Yeah.
Well, what about Joel Embiid? Why are you giving him a pass?
Yeah.
Like, wait a second. These are two entirely different things.
Yes.
The two entirely different things. Yes, Joel could have played better, and unfortunately, felt like he was always banged up going into the playoffs.
Yes.
Like it was always something.
Yeah,
like that fluke elbow in the Toronto series, right? And it, or something with his knee, he would tweak, right? So what I'm saying, it always feels like it's something with him where he's not 100%.
Yeah.
Now, even in the Toronto series, he had like the stomach flu. You remember, like early in the series?
Yes. That was a big game.
No,
too.
huge game.
Yeah.
I was at that game. Kawhi put on a master class that game. But like, like you know, it just feels like it's always something. And I was hoping maybe this year
his point, Vinny.
he was past it.
Vinny's not. He's not an Embiid believer.
He's not.
No.
Well, listen. You can't blame him based on the track record, right? I mean, you have to suspend.
I know we have these debates.
You have to suspend reality about what's happened to be like, oh no, this is part of his history. It's all part of the deal. All you can hope for every year is this year will be different. And I will say this: if he's able to come back, because I saw this with Curry, the year they won a championship.
Yes.
When when guys go out for an extended period of time in the second half of the year, if they can make it back in enough time to find rhythm, they have so much juice in their legs, much juice in their legs, that you really literally feel like it's a new lease on life because guys are so tired by that time of the year. Everybody is. Yeah. And I saw it with Curry, and like that could be the thing, but again, it's got to be enough games for them to reincorporate, like, how do we play with this guy again? Because
and you have all
it's
these
not
other
easy.
new pieces too. Yeah, Buddy Hield,
no doubt.
You know,
but look, every single team in the Eastern Conference except for the Boston Celtics has questions.
Yeah,
every single one of them. So throw Philly into the mix if he's able to come back and give them a decent number of games, a big enough sample size that he looks healthy and his stamina is enough to play enough minutes to affect the game. Throw him in there with New York and Cleveland and you know, Miami and Milwaukee. Why not? Indiana, Orlando. I mean, why not? Why couldn't Philly go toe-to-toe with any of those teams?
It's the truth.
Boston's on a different level, though. I mean, they just are.
So tell me about Boston and just how good.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's the most – look, Denver has the best core continuity in the NBA with their starting lineup, but Boston has the most versatile starting lineup in the league. They've got 5 players that play both ends of the floor, all 5 guys. For them to go out and lose Marcus Smart and lose Robert Williams, okay, the 2 best defensive players on the team, and replace them with Jrue Holiday, who is every bit as good as Smart defensively, but a better offensive player, and then Porzingis can do a lot of the stuff Robert Williams does defensively, but he'll give you 20. Think about it. And he shoots threes and spaces the floor. Those 5 guys are almost interchangeable. Do you know that I read something the other day because I called one of their games, and one of the game notes said, couldn't believe this, when those 5 guys play together on the court at the same time, they have only blitzed a ball screen or a post-up 5 times the entire season.
Really?
Now think about when you watch an NBA game, how many times guys get blitzed on ball screens. It happens all the time.
All the time.
They don't, because they can switch everything because of the versatility of Holiday and Derek White. They're 2 bigger guards that can guard, and they're strong. They won't get walked into the post. Tatum and Brown are committed defenders. Porzingis is a committed defender. So and then they shoot 43 threes a game. They make more than any team. They shoot a high percentage, and they will end you from the three-point line a lot of nights. So when they get the ball hopping, and by the way, this is the best Jaylen Brown's ever played in his career. He
looks.
No, he's actually outscored Tatum for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's his
what about
team, but it's
Porzingis,
close.
and like him slotting in that sense, from an offensive standpoint, because it feels like. He's starting to even...
Completely.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is this. When they had Al Horford or Robert Williams, if they ran a ball screen at Robert Williams, he could do one thing, run right to the rim for a lob. Yeah. Horford would pick and pop, but he would pop like his toe was a half an inch behind the line. So he's at 24 feet. Porzingis spaces out to 28 feet. And that's an enormous difference between a defender rotating to somebody and getting a hand up or running them off the line and not getting there in time.
Yeah.
It's a big difference in spacing, and Porzingis gives you that. And by the way, he also, anytime they get a switch, he'll walk a dude right into the mid-post. He's 7'3". Throw it to him. He's not a great post player, but he's a great turnaround jump shooter over smaller defenders. He doesn't miss that shot. So you now have a totally different weapon in your offense than these Boston teams that everybody's been trying to get by. And it seems like, by the way, they're perennially in the conference finals, it feels like, right?
I know.
I think they've been to 5 of them.
I know.
Right? And Tatum hasn't broken through yet. If they don't win it this year, I don't know if they ever will. But,
you're running away with the conference.
Yeah.
You have a 10-game lead. It was fun. I was watching it Monday night, which is like a throwaway game. They played Detroit, but everybody was hurt, right? And so I think Tatum was out. Well, it was Monday night. And I'm watching Derek White, and he's a good ball player, man. Like you said,
absolutely.
He's just a good ball player.
Every single time the Boston Celtics have a meaningful run,
I hate the fact that he's on that team.
He's got his fingerprints over every single important moment for the Celtics. Like when you watch a game, it's a tight game, and they make a run, Derek White's on the floor.
Yeah.
Like he's just part of it. He just does things. He comes up with it. He makes plays. By the way, I think that they're in a different class in the East, but if it wasn't for the existence of the Denver Nuggets, we would already go ahead and plan the parade route for the Celtics. The Nuggets are still the Nuggets. And when I watch the Nuggets play, the way they execute when they have to have it, and the greatness of Jokic, I'm not going to be shocked whatsoever if they repeat.
You made a great point to me about Minnesota, when Minnesota played them, and Minnesota played the Tops, right? Mm-hmm. And I want you to make that point because
last night.
It's so interesting because the NBA regular season, I mean, how much can you really glean from, like, you talk about tonight, like with Milwaukee, you wanted to see how Milwaukee was going to be. And,
no Giannis.
Right? And Giannis is not playing.
No. So I'll be watching 2 play-in games for the NCAA tournament. That's what I'm going to be watching. No, I'm kidding. I got to go on the air to talk about this game tomorrow.
No, but your point is right. Like, it's supposed to be Milwaukee and Boston. And you're like, wow, great. But Giannis is not playing.
Right. So you now, and so like for Minnesota fans, they'll say, well, it's great. We hung tough without our, 3 centers they had out. 3 front court players out. Gobert, Towns, and Naz Reid, who's been great, all out. Luka Garza is playing center, right? against Jokic, and yet Minnesota has the lead in the fourth quarter at one point. And you're thinking, like, this is a great sign. And I say, but what happened then? There's a timeout. Denver comes out of the timeout, and it just carve you up for the next 8 minutes and get the shots you want. Now, they ended up, Minnesota made a couple tough shots late, and then Edwards actually had a 3 at the buzzer to tie the game and send it to overtime. So but it looked like Denver had the game under control with a minute to go because it was possession after possession, execute, and then big shot making and taking from Porter Jr. and from Jokic, and Aaron Gordon had a big play. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. They played them tough, but when it got serious, that's what Denver is capable of doing.
Yeah, and you couldn't stop them, and they just carve you off.
I'm telling you, like, I feel like we're headed for Boston-Denver final, and it feels like that's probably what it should be. Like, we should get that matchup because I think they are the 2 overall best teams in the NBA.
Where's OKC now? Just forgive me too, because my mom's was a baseball game, right? So
yeah,
so my wife's texting me, right? They're not at the field. I can't find them. They're at the field.
So, man, that's
what I'm like, I'm over here talking hoops with legs.
Yeah.
All right, she just texted me, all good. All right, good.
All right.
They got
you
the
don't
field.
need to go find family members or anything.
And I'm like, all right, like, because Daddy handles all the sports in my house. So, God forbid something's going on. I'm like, I'm talking basketball with legs. Anyway, thank God. I saw her pop up. I'm like, oh, no, man, not again. I'm going to have to call mid-show and go, hey, which field are we at? Field 7?
That's great.
OKC.
Yeah.
I love watching them.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, you should. And
how legitimate are they?
Well, there's only 4 teams in the league that are top 5 defensive and offensive rated, and they're one of them. So they do it both ways. They got, again, I talk about the continuity amongst their starters a lot. So they have that, clearly. They have it, but here's one thing they have benefited from, and this is rare, and the Sacramento Kings were in the same boat last year. If you remember, they were a 3 seed in the West.
Yeah.
Okay? Their top 7 players at late in the year, and I stopped looking, but at one point, very late in the season, had missed a total of 17 games combined.
That's how I heard of. So I remember you bring that up to me last year.
So as a result, Anthony, it speaks about, hey, show up every night with your guys.
And you're going to win.
And other teams
you're going to just win games.
You're going to win, right?
Yeah.
And so I look them up, and they're in the same boat. They're that team this year. Those guys don't miss games at all. So great court continuity, a legitimate superstar offensive talent in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for everything's built around. He's got one of the most unique games in the league. If you took paint and you went on the edge of the lane, either side, and you drew a line all the way up to half court and just told Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all right, this is the only area of the floor you can operate in, he'd still get 30 because that's where he wants to be. It's weird because it's crowded and there's all kinds of stuff, and he has counter moves. When you feel like you're pushing him out to the wing off the dribble, he's got all these weird counter moves where he'll get himself back into that area because that's where he wants to kill you. He's the only player in the league that operates in that area of the floor, and you can't stop him. And then Chet Holmgren's big time, legit player.
Oh, my God.
And Jalen Williams is, by the way, as a co-star, Jalen Williams is going to be a perennial all-star in this league.
Yeah.
And he has developed into a guy you can run your offense to.
He really is.
And then Dorton Giddey are the other 2 guys. And like, if Giddey shot the ball, like, in that 38 to 44% range instead of 31% for the 3, Oklahoma City could potentially win the Western Conference, but that's a weakness on their team, right? But as it is, look, and I get beef from them because I'm not giving them a chance against Denver. It sounds like when I talk about the Nuggets, so their fan base gets on me and stuff like that, and I'm just saying, look, are you really going to go from almost virtually 0 playoff experience collectively to beating a team like Denver? Or even, who knows who they have to play in the first round? They might get a team like Dallas in the first round with Luka and Kyrie, or you might get the Suns, right, or the Lakers. Like, you don't know who's coming out and end up in that 8 spot. If you're the 1 seed, you get one of those teams. I'm not saying they wouldn't beat them, but it's a tough road in the West, man. So that's why I can't see them winning 3 rounds. Like, no, maybe they do get to the conference finals. But I think every team that's going to end up with a healthy Denver Nuggets is going to end up with the same result. They're going to be going home.
So we started this show by talking about state of ball, all right? So where is the state of the NBA? You, an NBA expert, I mean, nobody knows this league like you do. What's the state of this league right now? And compare and contrast it a little bit.
All right, well, I'll say this about the league, and this is where, for me, the NBA will get bailed out every year, by the NBA playoffs because there is nothing better. Now, the drama of the NCAA tournament, which we've already seen, started last night, and you're going to this coming weekend, these next 4 days, right? It's just the greatest because of the one-and-done aspect
right, the
of
volume of it.
Right,
games.
and just the pressure. And these schools that would never, ever, ever know about each other are now on the court together.
Plus, it's a communal watch. Like we're all together watching this.
All of it. So that's different. But other than that, like, you're a basketball fan, and you want to watch the greatest players in the world playing as hard as they possibly can, well, that's the NBA playoffs. So it will bail out the regular season every year because I think the regular season at times can be a real grind to follow, to cover it, because there's so many guys out all the time. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
I think the style of play at times can be a little bit monotonous because it's all pick and roll, drive, kick three, drive, kick three. Like, you watch some games like some nights and it's like 6 straight threes are taken, like quick ones. And anybody can shoot it anytime they want to. You're starting to see it right now, though. It is tightening up because the games are more important for seeding purposes and all that. Ever since the All-Star break, you could already see it. The physicality that's been clear. Like it's been like the NBA officials are like they got word for the league. Like, we don't want 4 guys getting 70 points tonight. Like, people are starting to like not believe that this is real stuff that we're doing. So now you're seeing it. The whistles they're swallowing them a little bit more. The games are better as a result. It's more physical that you have to play through. It's just better.
By the way,
it's better.
It is better.
So the playoffs bail it out. To answer your question, the state of the game is NBA, I think the regular season can be a little bit of a grind, even for the players. I think the mentality around it is different. You sign up for 82, but you're expected to play 70. Right? So that's just kind of where we're at. And I will say this. There are more highly skilled shot makers than there's ever been in the league. There's no comparison. Now, you can say what level you thought was entertaining, 80s, 90s, or now, and that's subjective, whatever you think, however you like the game to be played. But you can't deny the level of skill, right? It's off the charts because there's just 12 guys on a roster that can make sidestep threes now. Like, that shot didn't exist when I played. So the skill level's off the charts.
No, that shot did not exist.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
It's amazing.
You would get taken out so fast if you took a dribble, a 3 backing up off the dribble from the team. But now it's like the skill level's off the charts. Regular season, let's just get through it. It's getting better now, and then the playoffs are incredible. That's kind of where we're at.
It is funny because I still enjoy it immensely.
Yeah.
Like I'll sit back and just on a given night and just watch the game. And you're right. The depth of skill, roster to roster,
right?
The skill level's deep on rosters.
No,
like when you watch, like I still can get some entertainment out of watching kids. Like I was watching Pritchard just run the point in Boston. He's a good ball player.
Listen, you want to, and I'll tell you, if you haven't seen him like live, you can't believe how quick he is.
Yeah,
you cannot believe it. I called the Celtics Suns game out in Phoenix a couple weeks ago. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this dude like right in front of me, just like push the ball and cross guys up and get to the rim and get into the paint at will. And like so quick. And he's a role player in the NBA. Skill level's off the charts, man. And what they're working on, like the level of training they have in the offseason to enhance their skills and add things is so much more advanced than what we had access to when it was just like your own imagination and going to the gym by yourself.
Yeah.
Now they got these guys that specialize in adding skill to your game, and they're all doing it. So the skill level, the shot making, the difficult shot making is unlike anything we've ever seen in the league. Now I want to see the physical component brought back to the defense, and you really only see that once you get to the playoffs.
No, I agree. Then it becomes possession by possession. And then the last guy I want to talk about, because I don't know when we'll have the chance again, is Wemby. And like it's like Sunday night, same thing. Like I was kind of jonesing. I'm watching him. It was a great game. It was just like it was throwaway. It was Spurs in Brooklyn, right? But I'm just watching him. I'm just watching how like he attacks on the defensive end. Like he's a shot blocker. The way his ball, he's got this magnet to the basketball. Like he's got great touch. He knows where the ball is. He knows how to rebound. Like he's got incredible his whole feel for the game.
Well, the league's in trouble. The league is in trouble. And so on the All-City NBA podcast that I do, there's no reason to watch the Spurs except for him.
Yeah.
Right? So we do like a bi-weekly Wemby update, like what you're seeing. So early in the year, I thought first 2 months of the season, like Chet Holmgren was definitely ahead of him for Rookie of the Year because he was playing on a competitive team, and he was a very all-around player. Numbers were kind of similar to each other. And Wemby would, like, run up the floor, and then, like, somebody would hit him a little bit, and then he'd run out to the three-point line, and he'd kind of hang out there. And fast forward that to now, he runs up the floor with a purpose. He puts a guy on his back, and he'll hold his position.
I know.
He shot a shot the other night where he had the ball on the left block. He caught the ball. He was started to dribble a little bit. A double team was coming from the top, and he just turned and shot a fadeaway, falling out of bounds.
I saw it.
Like a Bernard King style. And I'm going, oh, he's making that shot. Forget it. And because he can shoot threes off the dribble. A ridiculous length, anything you throw him. Like he has dunked balls from angles this year where the defender was in a state of shock after it happened. Like, how did he dunk the ball from there? So, and he's got great defensive instincts. No, listen, man, he's
tremendous.
He's living up to the hype, and he will be talk about who's the face of the NBA. I hate the expression, but he's probably got every bit as much of a claim to that as anybody. About fast forward about 3 years down the road.
All right, so listen. Programming, though, first of all, we want to thank our good friends at Parks Casino. Make sure you get up to Parks Casino for the tournament. It's just unparalleled. You'll love it. How about it? First time
I got
you're
buddies.
Here.
Buddies will be here tomorrow. They do it every single year,
It's
the
awesome,
first day of the tournament, man. If I wasn't working, I'd be right here with them.
Yeah, it's the best. Watching the games here. And if you can't get here, just make sure you download the Bet Parks app. Everything we tell you about, futures, live in-game, all kinds of stuff. It's a blast. All right? We're going to be back tomorrow. I'll be with Dick Girardi at noon for the tournament tip-off special. And then Friday, Legs and I will be back together to talk about the first two rounds, like the first day, going into Friday. We're going to be doing a 3 to 5 at the Parks in South Philly. So we're really looking forward to this whole Parks Hoop special. For my main man, the great Tim Legler, I'm Anthony Gargano. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.